Sup, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I figured we'd have a discussion about the new Warcraft expansion Legion, real talk style. Now, my video I created yesterday was mostly just to announce and showcase the new features of the expansion. I didn't really want to get into my own criticisms and comments and, everything like that about them too much. I did a little bit, but not too much, and I wanted to kind of do that in a separate video once not only like I had gotten my own head around like kind of how I thought about things and, discussed it with people, but also just so the dust would settle and there are more things now that we know than I did yesterday and then the day before. And so in this video, I'm going to kind of talk about some of the different features. I'm not really going to announce or talk about what they're going to do, really, except for explaining like kind of, I guess, like how I think about them. Now, my first thing that I did want to say is that a lot of people criticize me for like getting hype up about the expansion and getting like really hyped up and excited about it, and just because Warlords of Draenor was a disappointment and they don't want to be kind of cheated by Blizzard again or something like that. And I think that everybody really kind of feels that way, and I don't really see anything wrong with really getting excited. Especially, I'm not like really pressuring people to go buy the game. Nobody here has even really played the game, and so I'll be able to kind of get more in depth and be able to offer real criticism and comments about how the gameplay really functions whenever beta is out, and even more so whenever the game is actually released. And so I did want to kind of address that. It's not that I've forgotten about like all of the things that went wrong with Warlords of Draenor. It's not that I don't have criticisms and comments and complaints about what they're doing in Legion already, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit in this video. It's just I don't really think there's anything wrong with getting excited and being happy about something that could potentially be really fun and really great. And if it's not, then that sucks. But there's nothing wrong with hoping, and at least it seems like it's going okay. And so I kind of did want to address that just because a lot of people did comment and tell me that, but just we're on the same page. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. Just make sure that you know that. And so the main things that I really wanted to talk about in this video is the new PvP system changes, as well as the artifacts, which are probably the two biggest things, and some of the more technical changes that they're trying to make. Now, whenever this video is going to come out, it's going to be on Saturday, and on Sunday, I believe that they're going to be doing a more nuts and bolts explanation on what's really going to happen in the expansion and really the gameplay, which is what I'm really more interested in than anything else. Really, I don't really care who lives, who dies, what the new class is. I mean, that's going to be cool, but I'm really focused on and concerned about, and I want to hear about, like, really what is it going to look like a day in the new expansion, and that's what I'm really focused on. And so first thing I do want to talk to you guys about is the new PvP system. If you guys don't know, they're going to be removing PvP gear, that's what they say, and I don't really know how they're going to replace it. Now, I can tell you guys that in Guild Wars 2, my understanding of that game is that whenever you queue into PvP, everybody is pretty much on the exact same level, and so, everybody has the exact same gear and everything like that. And so let's assume that they do that with Battlegrounds and everything. So like you queue up as a warrior and you have the exact same gear as everybody else. How then are your artifact runes going to factor into that? Because that's also going to give players an advantage with those artifact runes if they have done more content than somebody who hasn't. And so all of these little things, and the artifact weapons, some people have talked to me and they've told me that, oh, well, they're not just going to give Ashbringer out to everybody. They absolutely are. That's absolutely what's going to happen. You're going to be able to get, what they said is you're going to be able to get your artifact weapon within just like a couple hours of playing the game or hitting max level one way or another. I mean, you're going to be getting this artifact weapon really, really early. Everybody is going to have it. Like, all of your alts, like, think of your shittiest alt, okay? It's going to be using the most badass weapon in the entire war in the game. Probably 30 minutes, like within probably 5 to 10 hours maximum of playing in the new Legion content. And so I obviously do have concerns about that, and also the way that the artifact weapons are going to work is you're going to be leveling this weapon up throughout the entire expansion. It's going to be a lot like your Mist of Pandaria cloak, where you started out, or I guess it would be more like the ring now in Warlords of Draenor, where as soon as you hit level 100, you're able to go get your 640 ring, and you don't really take that off ever. You just level it up throughout the entire expansion, and if you basically replace the ring with the weapon, you've got the artifact weapon system along with a bunch of other things as well. Now, that's also going to, a lot of people had questions, are there going to be other weapons that are going to be added in what do you call it, in Legion, and the answer actually is no. And so there's only going to be artifact weapon. You're only going to have your artifact weapon in the Legion expansion. I kind of have two minds about that. Of course, like if they make weapons that are better for then, like, I mean, like, what are you going to get a weapon that's better than Ashbringer? Like, I don't really see how that would make sense either. And so I can see where they're going with that, but it also might make people feel limited in terms of their weapon choices, and I do hope they add like different weapon transmogs. And it's a good thing I thought of that is they are revamping the transmog system, and they're making it a lot like Diablo 3. If you guys don't know how the Diablo 3 transmog system works, as soon as you acquire an item, you basically now own that type of transmog. And so like if you got Andariel's Visage, which is a really good helmet in Diablo 3, or you kind of was, and if you got that weapon, it basically added that to your transmog, I guess like your possible items that you could transmog. And so you could throw Andariel's Visage away, you could do whatever you want with it. You no longer really need to have it in your inventory. As soon as you obtain the item the first time, you had that transmog available to you, whether or not you had that item in the future, and you had that permanently. And so that's really what they're going to be changing in Legion, is that now you're no longer going to have the items in your inventory that you want to transmog. After you pick it up, it's added to your transmog, I don't know, like repertoire, or like, I don't know, like the list of all the different items that you can transmog, and that's really all you have to do. You can vendor it and sell it, but you can still transmog to it later on. So I think that for a lot of people who are as neurotic as I am with transmog, I've got like all 30 slot bags, and like both my void storage things, like all full of transmog stuff. All that is going to be gone, and I'm going to be very, very happy about that. And so I won't really have to worry about that anymore. And so that's probably one of the biggest changes for me personally in terms of like a quality of life increase. And so I'm really glad that they're making that transmog change. And also it seems like they are making a really big transition from going from actual gear that modifies your stats to I guess like vanity and transmog gear as a lot of the rewards in the expansion. A lot of the different types of ways that you can make your artifact weapon look different. And so, for example, we can look at Ashbringer. Ashbringer, you can make Ashbringer, like there's like a list of all different things you can do, and you can make it like look like a fire Ashbringer. You can make it look like corrupted Ashbringer, and then you can change the colors from that way as well. And so that's really cool. One thing that I am, of course, like, I mean, this is kind of a tinfoil hat thing, but I'm really worried that I really hope they don't like sell like artifact weapon skins. That would really, I would really, really not like that. Like that would be honestly probably one of the only things that would make me even consider quitting the game, just because at that point, what is really the point? Because if the only real rewards are vanity rewards, and you can buy vanity rewards, whatever. And so I really hope that they don't start selling the different artifact skins, and they only make them available to players through in-game means. But we can, of course, hope. I think that almost everybody's kind of on the same page there. Another thing that was kind of disappointing to me is that they said that they liked how the Warforged Tertiary and Socket bonuses worked out in Wards of Draenor, and that really kind of disappointed me, because from everybody that I've really talked to, in terms of like they're actually real raiders, none of them, or I can't really say none of them, but at least like 80 to 90% or more, all of those people do not like the Warforged Tertiary Socket bonuses. Like, personally, I really don't like them, and whenever I've made videos talking about them, I've had more or less like almost 100% like positive feedback of people who also did not like the new system, because there's no real way you can ever achieve perfect gear, and it's always like, whenever you get something, never really quite there. And so that was really kind of something that made me quit Diablo as well. And so that was really kind of one of the big disappointments with like the interview that Icy Veins did with the developers, is that they did talk about how they enjoyed those bonuses, and how they might also add more of those bonuses in the future. And so I really hope that doesn't happen, but that does seem like the way it's going. I just really don't like the hamster wheel being increased and increased and increased. And so anyway, another thing is professions. Now, I know that a lot of people, I think that almost everybody, again, has disliked professions in Wards of Draenor in one way or another. If for nothing else, really, I think that just like quantitatively, there's less patterns and less things that you can go out and figure out how to do than in the previous expansions. And so they said that they had the largest professions team ever working. They didn't really get into specifics on what's really going to happen with professions. I really hope that, what I've always really wanted with professions is for certain professions to be able to augment gear and weapons. I guess not the artifact weapons, but your gear with those tertiary stat bonuses, with the with the war forging, with the sockets and everything. I think that would be really cool integration with the professions, and I hope that they do something like that, but I don't really think that they will, because again, that makes the hamster wheel a little bit smaller. And another thing is that they talked about a lot about dehomogenizing classes, which they used hunters for an example, and I actually really like this. I know that there are some people who think this is really fucking stupid, but I think it's great. So for the 300 specs, you've got survival, and so people were asking, they're like, why does survival have a spear? And Blizzard basically said, this is what's happening. Survival hunters are turning into a melee class. Now, survival hunters in Burning Crusade, or not Burning, Vanilla, were a melee class if you were a fucking moron. But even then, they were never really a melee class. You had, Raptor Strike, Wing Clip, and Mongoose Bite. Mongoose Bite, I remember it used to do 80 damage at level 80. It was just the worst spell in the entire game. And you'd only use it after you were parried or something. It was ridiculous. And so they're going to be doing that with survival. So survival hunters turn into a melee spec class. And so I think that's really cool. And or melee spec. And marksman hunters, it's basically you just have lone wolf all the time. Marksman hunters don't have a pet. It's just a hunter. And beast mastery hunters function the way the beast mastery hunters do now, where it's the hunter and the pet. Also, they've been talking a lot about warlocks, how they're going to focus more on demonology as controlling demons, affliction as rotting people down, and destruction as big bursts. And so I think that they did that a little bit with Warlords of Draenor, but in Mists of Pandaria, I could definitely say that there was so much real homogenation with really kind of how a class felt that it was kind of, it was really kind of boring. Another class that they talked about was Discipline Priests, and they're going to try and make Discipline Priests, and this is always something that really, I don't really like the whole idea of this, but we'll see how it goes. They're going to make Discipline Priests like a 50% healer, 50% DPS, and I don't really like that whole dynamic, and I don't really think I think it plays out really well, hypothetically in your head, but how well is this actually going to play out in terms of gameplay? I'm not really sure, and so that's another concern that I have, is how are they really going to be changing the classes? And, there's been a lot of focus in Legion, I think that we can all see, on individual character and class identity, with the class halls, with the artifact weapons, with dehomogenizing classes. There's been a lot of focus on doing that, and so I really hope that they do it well. That's really kind of what I hope for. And another thing is the artifact weapons. You're going to be having a different artifact weapon for each different spec, and so that obviously, as a warrior, that makes me wonder, because if you're Fury, you can be single-minded Fury, or you can be Titan's Grip. Now, Titan's Grip is what I always prefer to do, because of course I'm not a little bitch, but some people do like playing single-minded Fury, and so how are they really going to do this? Obviously, if you're arms and you already have whatever the two-handed badass arms weapon, artifact weapon is, how are you really going to, are you going to be, if you go over to Fury, are they removing Titan's Grip? Are they making single-minded Fury the only option? Which one are they doing? And obviously, it makes me wonder, and I don't really know what's going on, and so things like that are kind of confusing, and I'm just kind of hoping that they still give people the option to go from single-minded Fury or to Titan's Grip. But if they have to cut one, I really hope they cut single-minded Fury. And so anyway, that's one thing that I was really glad about, is to see that they did have a lot more focus on individual player advancement, and how you're really going to level up these artifacts has been more or less hard to understand. There's also not really going to be any catch-up mechanics with the artifacts, and so that means that if you come in later in the expansion, it could be a lot more difficult for you to move up and get into raiding. Now, because you're going to be leveling up your artifact weapon the entire time, I don't really think it will go from, in the way that they have legendaries right now, because legendaries right now, they're not really a reward, they are a requirement for raiding. By the time November and December roll around, if you're trying to join a raiding guild and you don't have a legendary ring, you're probably going to get declined just on that. And so it makes it very hard to kind of re-roll classes. And I don't really think that Blizzard should really worry too much about re-rolling, but they should definitely acknowledge it as something that's happening, and that people do a lot for a lot of different reasons, and a lot of them are for the best intentions, to fulfill a role that their guild needs. And that also leads me to something else, that they've been talking a lot about improving the social experience of Warcraft. Now, I know that I think that you guys know kind of the way that I feel about that. I've always viewed the social experience and social interaction to be the most key element of the game, and that's really what kind of separates World of Warcraft from Warcraft 3. It's what separates World of Warcraft from Skyrim or from The Witcher 3 or something like that, because it's an interactive I guess like a world that you have to interact with other players in order to advance yourself, and everything like that. And so I do hope that they add in a lot more of these things that facilitate and promote social interaction. As I said, I think that a lot of people are not really as socially bound as they might think that they are in this game. At least that's what it seems to me. And so giving people those little nudges is really probably going to help people in the long run kind of come out of their shell and interact with other players. Now, the order halls is something, if you guys don't really know what that is, so they're basically the garrisons 2.0, and I'm using that term very lightly because they're really not, but that's the closest thing that I can use to compare them to. Well, actually, no, it's not. If you guys have ever rolled a Death Knight, you know that whenever you start your Death Knight, you start in that necropolis, which is called Asmongold. I think it's Archerus Asmongold, and that's kind of like the Death Knight. Basically like that will be pretty much their class hall, order hall. And as I said, I think that Paladins probably have White's Hope Chapel. Warriors, I have no idea, and everything else will probably be different. And so anyway, each one of these little order halls, everybody in the class, all the other classes, like all the other warriors, for example, or all the Death Knights, let's say, just because we have an example already in the game. All of the Death Knights go to Asmongold. It's not like whenever you go to Asmongold, you're the only Death Knight there, and everybody goes to their own phase of Asmongold. All the other Death Knights are there, and they can interact with each other, and that's going to be the way that the class order halls are going to work. And also, there's like this parallel that's going on. And I guess like these two things are going on at the same time, where all of the other classes are there, and all of the other people who are like Ret Paladins or Death Knights, whatever, are there in this class halls, but also at the same time, you're like the supreme leader of the class hall. And so like, it seems kind of weird to see yourself, but like, I thought I was the supreme leader. How can you be the supreme leader and him be the supreme leader if I'm the supreme leader? It seems like there can only really be one supreme leader. And that also leads me to talk about something that I felt was kind of an issue since Cataclysm, which is the focus from making the game centered around the world, and you're kind of like an agent in the world, rather than now where the game is kind of centered around you in more of a first person, not really first person, but a single player experience where you're addressed more as like the hero, you're addressed as commander and everything like that. And so there are more things that you kind of advance yourself, and the game kind of recognizes you for it. And I've never really liked that in an MMO, because it kind of focuses on, I guess like the game acknowledging you as an individual. And in a way, like with the way that I view raiding and everything like that, is that the players are basically taking the place of the main lore characters in completing the actions that those main lore characters would complete. And so, for example, with Garrosh or something like that, the players really kind of facilitate the killing of Garrosh, because that's what would make sense in the game environment. But it's not like 25 random people came in and really killed Garrosh, and it wouldn't really make a lot of sense. And so that's kind of always been the way that I look at it. And so we have had this shift from the game being kind of centered around the environment, and you are just like an actor in the environment. And now the game is kind of centered around you, and other NPCs and everything acknowledge you as like a hero or something like that. And of course, I mean, like, I've killed fucking Deathwing, I've killed the Lich King, I've killed Illidan, I've stopped Garrosh, like, I've done all these amazing things, but maybe some other moron hasn't. And that's kind of what I don't really like that whole aspect of it. And I wish that they would just kind of go back to, making the players just actors in the environment, rather than making the environment, I guess, like, formed around the player. But that's more of a meta thing, and I just want to kind of talk to you guys about that because it's just been something I've been concerned about. And I know that there's obviously a balance. A lot of people, have like a very binary way of thinking about things where, well, I did some great things, and like even in vanilla, like whenever you completed the Scepter of the Shifting Sands quest, they called you a fucking hero. But whenever you killed Hogger, it was like, good job, great job. It's not like, they're singing your praises. And so there were only very, very few times, like whenever you got your AQ40 ring to Exalted, very few times that you actually were addressed as like some sort of a hero. Rest of the time you were addressed as like an adventurer or, an individual or something like that. And so, anyway, that's just something that I guess like it's more mentality. I guess it's just more kind of a mentality thing. Anyway, so the last thing that I really kind of want to focus on, I think that's the last thing I really want to talk about. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Is the PvP system. And they're pretty much going to be getting rid of Conquest and they're going to be getting rid of Honor and also to an extent PvP gear. And what they really mean by PvP gear is they mean gear that you have to have in PvP that scales up for PvP. Apparently, PvP will still be a way to obtain gear, which is what I really hope, but that gear will not be required for PvP. Now, I think that is like, I don't really know how that's going to work. And also, even if gear isn't a factor and they scale everybody down, I talked about this at the beginning of the video, it kind of drew me off course. Is that even if they scale everybody down, everybody has, the exact same gear, every warrior has the same gear, every paladin has the same gear, every warlock has the same gear, how are they really going to handle things like world PvP? And is it just going to be like, in world PvP, the guy that has like, I don't know, who's killed like whatever, because we'll be killing Gul'dan, as I said before, at some point, full like mythic Gul'dan gear, whatever his raid is, I think it's like Suramar Palace, versus like some guy who just hit level 110. It seems like kind of, how is that really going to work in world PvP? Is that going to automatically scale you down? I wouldn't really consider that fun at all, and I hope they don't do anything like that, but we'll see. Another thing that I was really kind of disappointed about in Wards of Draenor is that PvP didn't give players another avenue in order to transition into raiding. It seems like they've been separating PvE and PvP as two separate games, and I think that in a lot of ways that's good, and I'm very glad that they've been changing the different way that the spells, different ways that spells function in PvP and PvE, rather than making it the same and trying to balance them with the tier bonuses and the PvP tier bonuses and the different meta comps and 3v3 and RBGs and random battlegrounds. It obviously is just too much of a balancing act, and it's going to be good now that a lot of the abilities are going to function differently. But at the same time, I would like to see more ways that players can transition from PvE to PvP and vice versa. One thing that I would like to see, like example, like this would be a good thing that I wish that they did more to Draenor, is that the elite gear for like the wild gladiators gear, which is the original gear, like the gear you can just buy with conquest points, is item level 700 and it scales up to 735 or 730 in PvP. And I would really like to see the elite gear have a base item level of 715 and then scale still up to 730. And so it's an incentive to do that stuff even for raiders, and so people can have something to go for. And I know that a lot of people don't really like that in a way. They feel like they have to do it. But with 715, that's like still heroic Hellfire Citadel gear, so it wasn't really that good. But I can say from my own personal experiences is if PvP didn't offer really strong gear in Burning Crusade, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. The reason that I was able to join a very good guild and come into a Sunroll raid pretty much out of not doing anything except for like Karazhan, is because I had full brutal gear, which is equivalent and good enough to really do at least some of the entry-level bosses in Sunwell, or at least like be able to provide a buff for the other people and kind of hold your own. Now, whenever you have full PvP gear, you don't really have that option, and creating more avenues for people to transition would, I think, create more longevity for the game, because I think a lot of PvPers would want to play some PvP or PvE and vice versa, and so if you make more avenues for people to do that, that makes it a little bit easier to make the transition back and forth. I could see that being better for everybody. Of course, there's always a balancing act there as well, with like kind of having things being required to do PvE for like Cunning of the Cruel or something like that in Dragon Soul or Dragon Wrath for that matter, or Shadowmourne or something like that, and then also it being required to do PvP with like getting certain types of really good gear, which is how it was in Burning Crusade. I don't really think that having to play PvE or PvP is really an inherently bad thing always. And once you start catering to like a certain niche of player, which is like PvE only players, PvP only players, the game seems to fragment itself out, and decisions, it's harder really to make decisions for different people, and the content that each individual person has to really to set out to do is very diminished. And I know that a lot of people kind of disagree with that, but that's just the way that I look at it. And again, that's also probably pretty because of my own personal experiences. And so I did want to kind of sit down with you guys and have this discussion about Warlords of Draenor and talk about these new systems, like the PvP system. I'm very curious to see how that's going to work out. There's a huge amount of people. And I said that PvP was like a niche in the game. I didn't mean that like 300 people play PvP, right? I just meant that was a small part. It was a part of the people who play the game. It's not a small niche or anything like that. The PvPers is probably the biggest, not the biggest, but there's a very big amount of people who just PvP. And so to say that they're just a small amount of people that nobody cares about is ridiculous. And so I just wanted to also say that obviously, I know PvP and PvE are very important. I think this game's always been like a PvE-centered game, and it probably pretty much always will be, but PvP is also a very big aspect of it as well. And so anyway, guys, those are the things that I wanted to talk about. Let me know what you guys think about the expansion so far, the announcement, questions, comments, concerns, etc. I'll probably talk to you guys more about this once they do the the nuts and bolts discussion, which is what I think it's going to be on Sunday. I think that they're doing it on Sunday, and so we can know more about like what is really going to be the progression path and the real gameplay mechanics of Legion, which is what I'm really concerned about more than pretty much anything else. And so anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got. So thank you for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.